Hello, and welcome to Your Financial Bud. I'm your financial bud, Bud Milligan, wealth manager with Milligan Wealth Management, and today we're diving into the topic of tariffs and their impact on the U.S. economy and markets. We're going to discuss what tariffs are, run through a brief history of tariffs and how other countries are using them, and wrap up with a quick discussion on how they might impact the economy as well as the markets. Now, tariffs have been a hot topic in the news, and understanding them is critical for grasping how international trade affects our daily lives and potentially our portfolios. So let's get started. What exactly are tariffs? You may be familiar with tariffs, but let's do a quick primer just to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music. Tariffs are really just taxes imposed by a government on imported goods and services. They're usually calculated as a percentage of the item's value. Tariffs can be used for several purposes. Those primary purposes are to make imported goods more expensive, and that encourages consumers to buy domestically produced products. A second reason for using tariffs is to provide revenue for a government. And then thirdly, to negotiate with other countries. There's a great explanation of U.S. tariff policy titled U.S. Tariff Policy Overview at crsreports.congress.gov. Now, in that report, dated January 31st of this year, the rules-based global trading system adopted by the World Trade Organization, or WTO, is outlined. It describes the system's core rules with regards to tariffs, which are non-discrimination, binding commitments, transparency, and safety valves. That article also describes how U.S. tariff policies are made and have evolved over time. There has been a back and forth shift of responsibility between Congress and the president over the years. However, the most recent rules delegated extensive tariff-setting authority to the president. While tariffs have only accounted for around 2% of the total federal revenue over the last 70 years, according to an article posted by CNBC, from our foundation as a country up to the Civil War, the U.S. relied on tariffs for about 90% or more of its revenue. After the Civil War, the U.S. began using excise taxes and other taxes to reduce reliance on tariffs to about 50% of our revenue. But once the income tax was created in 1861 by Congress, through the encouragement of Abraham Lincoln, we began to rely less and less on tariffs. Over time, their role has evolved, and they're now primarily used as a tool of trade policy. For example, in recent years, the U.S. has imposed tariffs on a range of Chinese goods as part of the ongoing trade disputes between the two countries. One of the interesting differences in these negotiations today is the discussion about impeding the flow of illicit drugs from China through the Mexican and Canadian borders. Let's talk about potential economic impact of tariffs. Now, the primary impact of tariffs that they might have is on the economy, such as on trade, domestic industries, consumer prices, and purchasing power, employment, and economic growth. Now, I'm basing this on what has historically happened, so a lot of this is really just speculation since we're projecting that historical experience into the future. The two potential effects on trade are reduction in imports and retaliatory tariffs. Since they make imported goods more expensive, tariffs can lead to a reduction in imports as consumers and businesses seek alternatives. This can benefit domestic industries that compete with foreign suppliers by decreasing foreign competition. Another potential impact on trade is a retaliatory tariff. When one country imposes tariffs on another, often the other country will respond by imposing or increasing tariffs, and as this escalates, it's referred to as a tariff war. There may also be an impact on domestic industries, primarily in the protection of domestic industries and higher production costs. Consumer prices and purchasing power may be impacted as well. Increased consumer prices are possible, as businesses will often pass along the increased cost of imports. The substitution effect is another potential impact, as consumers may shift their spending to domestically produced alternatives. Employment and job market may be impacted, since tariffs can lead to job creation in protected industries by reducing competition and increasing demand for domestic products. This can revitalize sectors like steel, aluminum, and manufacturing, and that can contribute to economic growth. However, The converse can be true for export-dependent industries. Those industries that rely on exports may suffer from retaliatory tariffs, leading to job losses. Sectors especially vulnerable to tariff wars are the agricultural sectors, technology companies, and automotive manufacturers. Finally, overall economic growth may be impacted by tariffs. In the short term, tariffs can stimulate economic growth by protecting domestic industries and creating jobs. However, the long-term effect can be detrimental, as increased production costs, reduced export opportunities, and higher consumer prices can stifle economic expansion. Also, uncertainty surrounding trade policies and potential tariffs can deter investment. Businesses may be hesitant to invest in new projects or expand operations if they're concerned about future tariffs, which can slow economic growth and innovation. So, how can tariffs impact the market? Well, the primary potential market impacts are on stock market volatility, sector-specific impacts, positive and negative, and potential long-term effects on certain industries or sectors. Tariffs can create uncertainty in the financial markets. Investors may react to news on tariffs and trade disputes by selling stocks, which in turn leads to market volatility. Companies that rely heavily on international trade can see their stock prices fluctuate significantly. Certain sectors may be more affected by tariffs than others. For example, the technology sector, which relies on a global supply chain, can be particularly vulnerable to disruptions caused by tariffs. Likewise, the agricultural sector can suffer from reduced export opportunities. While tariffs can provide short-term protection for domestic industries, as discussed earlier, they can also lead to inefficiencies in the economy. Over time, businesses may become less competitive globally if they rely on tariff protection rather than innovation and efficiency. So, to summarize everything we've talked about, tariffs may be a double-edged sword. While they can protect domestic industries and generate government revenue, they can also lead to higher prices, inflation, and potential trade wars. Using tariffs as a source of revenue may seem like something new, but it has historical precedence. At one point in our nation's history, income tax was something new, and I venture to say it was a scary time for Americans back then. The impact of tariffs on the U.S. economy and markets is complex and multifaceted. It affects consumers, businesses, and investors alike. Make sure you examine all the facts before you make any financial decisions based on recent tariff policy changes. At Milligan Wealth Management, my position is to stay diversified and not make any radical decisions based on these changes. Find out more about how tariffs can impact the economy and potential ways this might affect certain asset classes by going to my website at milliganwealth.com. You can check out my blog, Your Financial Bud, and find other resources from LPL Financial Research. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to share it with others and subscribe to my Milligan Wealth YouTube channel for more insightful content on economics and trade. Until next time, I'm Bud Milligan, Your Financial Bud.